Chapter 10. The Small Cabinet of the Tuileries. We will leave Villefort on the road to Paris, traveling with all the speed, and penetrating the 2 or 3 apartments which precede it, enter the small cabinet of the Tuileries with the arched window, so well known as having been the favorite cabinet of Napoleon and Louis XVIII, as also that of Louis Philippe. There, in this closet, seated before a walnut-tree table he had brought with him from Hartwell, and to which, from one of those fancies not uncommon to great people, he was particularly attached, the king, Louis XVIII, was carelessly listening to a man of 50 or 52 years of age, with grey hairs, aristocratic bearing, and exceedingly gentlemanly attire, whilst he was making a note in a volume of Horace Gracchus's edition, a bad one, but precious, which was much indebted to the sagacious observations of the philosophical monarch. "You say, sir," said the king, "that I am exceedingly disquieted, sire." "Really, have you had a visit of the 7 fat kine and 7 lean kine? No, sire, for that would only betoken for us 7 years of plenty and 7 years of scarcity, and with a king as full of foresight as your majesty, scarcity is not a thing to be feared." "Then of what other scourge are you afraid, my dear Blackass?" "Sire, I have every reason to believe that a storm is brewing in the south." "Well, my dear Duke," replied Louis XVIII, "I think you are wrongly informed, and know positively that, on the contrary, it is very fine weather in that direction." Man of ability as he was, Louis XVIII disliked a pleasant jest. "Sire," continued Monsieur de Blacas, "if only be to reassure a faithful servant, will your majesty send into Languedoc province, and Dauphine trusty men who will bring you back a faithful report as to the feeling in these 3 provinces?" "Canimus Surdus," replied the king, continuing to the annotations in his Horace. "Sire," replied the courtier, laughing, in order that he might seem to comprehend the quotation, "your majesty may be perfectly right in relying on the good feeling of France, but I fear I am not altogether wrong in dreading some desperate attempt." "By whom?" "By Bonaparte, or at least his party." "My dear Blackas," said the king, "you with your alarms prevent me from working." "And you, sire, prevent me from sleeping with your security." "Wait, my dear sir, wait a moment, for I have such a delightful note on the Pasteur Coin Traheret. Wait, I will listen to you afterward." There was a brief pause, during which Louis XVIII wrote, in a hand as small as possible, another note on the margin of his Horace, and then, looking at the Duke with the air of a man who thinks he has an idea of his own, whilst he is but commenting upon the idea of another, he said, "Go on, my dear Duke, go on, I listen." "Sire," said Blacas, who had for a moment the hope of sacrificing Villefort to his own profit, "I am compelled to tell you that these are not mere rumors destitute of foundation which thus disquiet me, but a reflective man deserving all my confidence, and charged by me to watch over the south." The Duke hesitated as he pronounced these words. Has arrived post to tell me a great peril threatens the king, and then I hastened to you, sire." "Malade ducis avi domum," continued Louis XVIII, still annotating. "Does your majesty wish me to cease as to this subject?" "By no means, dear Duke, but just stretch out your hand." "Which?" "Whichever you please." There to the left. Here, sire. I tell you to the left, and you seek the right. I mean on my right, yes, there. You will find the report of the Minister of Police of yesterday. But here is Monsieur Dondre himself. And Monsieur Dondre, announced by the Chamberlain-in-waiting, entered. Did you not say Monsieur Dondre? Said the king to the servant who announced the Minister of Police. Yes, sire, the Baron Dondre, the man replied. Of course, the Baron, said Louis XVIII, with an imperceptible smile. Come in, Baron, and tell the Duke all you know. The latest news of Monsieur de Bonaparte. Do not conceal anything, however serious. Let us see. The island of Elba is a volcano, and we may expect to have issuing thence flaming and bristling war. Bella, horda bella. Monsieur Dondre leaned very respectfully on the back of a chair with his two hands, and said, Has your Majesty perused yesterday's report? Yes, but tell me the Count himself, who cannot find anything, what the report contains. Give him the particulars of what the usurper is doing in his islet. Monsieur, said the Baron to the Count, all the servants of His Majesty must approve of the latest intelligence, which we have from the island of Elba. Bonaparte. Monsieur Dondre looked at Louis XVIII, who, employed in writing a note, did not even raise his head. Bonaparte, continued the Baron, is mortally wearied, and passes whole days in watching his miners at work at Porto Longone, and scratches himself for amusement, added the king. Scratches himself? Inquired the Count. What does your Majesty mean? Yes, indeed, my dear Count. Did you forget that this great man, this hero, this demigod, is attacked with malady of the skin which worries him to death? Prurigo. And moreover, Monsieur le Comte, continued the Minister of Police, we are almost assured that in a very short time the usurper will be insane. Insane? Insane to a degree. His head becomes weaker. Sometimes he weeps bitterly. Sometimes laughs boisterously. At other times he passes hours on the seashore, flinging stones in the water, and when the flint makes duck and drake 5 or 6 times, he appears as delighted as if he had gained another Marengo or Austerlitz. Now, you must agree these are indubitable symptoms of weakness, or of wisdom, Monsieur le Baron, or of wisdom, said Louis XVIII, laughing. The greatest captains of antiquity recreated themselves with casting pebbles into the ocean. See Plutarch's Life of Scipio Africanus. Monsieur de Blacas pondered deeply on this blind repose of monarch and minister. Villefort, who did not choose to reveal the whole secret, lest another should reap all the benefit of the disclosure, had yet communicated enough to cause him the greatest uneasiness. Well, Dondre, said Louis XVIII, Blacas is not yet convinced. Let us proceed, therefore, to the usurper's conversion. The Minister of Police bowed. The usurper's conversion, murmured the Count, looking at the king and Dondre, who spoke alternately, like Virgil's shepherds. The usurper's converted. Decidedly, my dear Count. In what way converted? To good principles. Explain all about it, Baron. Well, this it is, Monsieur le Comte, said the minister, with the gravest air in the world. Napoleon lately had a review, and as 2 or 3 of his old grumblers, as he calls them, testified a desire to return to France, he gave them their dismissal, and exhorted them to serve their good king. These were his own words, Monsieur le Comte. I am certain of that. Well, Blackus, what you think of this? Inquired the king triumphantly, and pausing for a moment from the voluminous scholiast before him. I say, sire, that Monsieur le Minister of Police, or I am greatly deceived, and as it is impossible it can be the Minister of Police, as he has the guardianship of the safety and honor of your Majesty, it is probable I am in error. However, sire, if I might advise, your Majesty will interrogate the person of whom I spoke to you, and will even urge your Majesty to do him this honor. Most willingly, Count, under your auspices I will receive any person you please. But with arms in hand, Monsieur le Minister, have you any report more recent than this, dated the 20th February, and this is the 3rd of March? No, sire, but I am already expecting one. It may have arrived since I left my office. Go thither, and if there be none, well, continued Louis XVIII, laughing, make one. That is the usual way, is it not? Oh, sire, replied the minister, we have no occasion to invent any. Every day our desks are loaded with the most circumstantial denunciations, coming from crowds of individuals who hope for some return for service which they seek to render, but cannot, they trust to fortune, and rely that some unexpected event will give a kind of reality to their predictions. Well, sir, go, said Louis XVIII, and remember that I am waiting for you. I will but go and return, sire. I shall be back in 10 minutes. And I, sire, said Monsieur de Blacas, will go and find my messenger. Wait, sir, wait, said Louis XVIII. Really, Monsieur de Blacas, I must change your armorial bearings. I will give you an eagle without stretched wings, holding in its claws a prey which tries in vain. Escape, and bearing this advice, tenax. Sire, I listen, said the Blacas, biting his nails with impatience. I wish to consult you on this passage. Mole fugus annihilitu. You know it refers to a stag flying from a wolf. Are you not a sportsman and a great wolf hunter? Well then, what do you think of the mole annihilitu? Admirable, sire, but my messenger is like the stag you refer to, for he has posted 220 leagues in little more than 3 days, which is undergoing great fatigue and anxiety, my dear Count, when we have a telegraph which corresponds in 3 or 4 hours, and that without putting it the least in the world out of breath. Ah, sire, you recompense but badly this poor young man, who has come so far, and with so much ardor to give you, your Majesty, useful information. If only for the sake of Monsieur de Salvieux, who recommends him to me, I entreat your Majesty to receive him graciously. Monsieur de Salvieux, my brother's chamberlain. Yes, sire, he is at Marseilles, and writes to me thence. Does he speak to you of this conspiracy? No, but strongly recommends Monsieur de Villefort, and begs me to present him to your Majesty. Monsieur de Villefort, cried the king. Is the messenger's name Monsieur de Villefort? Yes, sire, and he comes from Marseilles? In person. Why did you not mention his name at once? Replied the king, betraying some uneasiness. Sire, I thought his name was unknown to your Majesty. No, Blacas, he is a man of strong and elevated understanding, ambitious too. And, pardieu, you know his father's name. His father? Yes, Noirtier. Noirtier the Girondin? Noirtier the senator? He himself. And your Majesty has employed the son of such a man? Blacas, my friend, you have but limited comprehension. I told you Villefort was ambitious, and to attain this ambition Villefort would sacrifice anything, even his father. Then, sire, may I present him? This instant, Count. Where is he? Waiting below in my carriage. Seek him at once. I hastened to do so. The Count left the royal presence with the speed of a young man. His really sincere realism made him youthful again. Louis XVIII remained alone, and, turning his eyes on his half-opened Horace, muttered, Justum et tenacem prospositi virum. Monsieur de Blacas returned with the same rapidity he had descended, but in the antechamber he was forced to appeal to the king's authority. Villefort's duty garb, his costume, which was not of courtly cut, excited the susceptibility of Monsieur de Brezé, who was all astonishment at finding that this young man had the pretension to enter before the king in such attire. The count, however, superseded all difficulties with the word, His Majesty's order, and, in spite of the observations which the master of the ceremonies made for the honor of his office and principles, Villefort was introduced. The king was seated in the same place where the count had left him. On opening the door, Villefort found himself facing him, and the young magistrate's first impulse was to pause. "Come in, Monsieur de Villefort," said the king. "Come in." Villefort bowed, and, advancing a few steps, waited until the king should interrogate him. "Monsieur de Villefort," said Louis XVIII, "the Count de Blacas assured me you have some interesting information to communicate." "Sire, the Count is right, and I believe your Majesty will think it equally important. In the first place, and before everything else, sir, is the bad news as great in your opinion as it is wished to make me believe?" "Sire, I believe it to be most urgent, but I hope, by the speed I have used, that it is not irreparable." "Speak as fully as you please, sir," said the king, who began to give way to the emotions which had changed the face of Monsieur de Blacas and affected Villefort's voice. "Speak, sir, and pray begin at the beginning. I like order in everything." "Sire," said Villefort, "I will render a faithful report to your Majesty, but I must entreat your forgiveness if my anxiety creates some obscurity in my language." A glance at the king after this discreet and subtle exordium assured Villefort of the benignity of his august auditor, and he continued, "Sire, I have come as rapidly to Paris as possible to inform your Majesty that I have discovered, in the exercise of my duties, not a commonplace and insignificant plot, such as is every day got up in the lower ranks of the people and in the army, but an actual conspiracy, a storm which menaces no less than a throne of your Majesty. Sire, the usurper is arming 3 ships. He meditates some project, which, however mad, is yet, perhaps, terrible. At this moment he will have left Elba, to go whither I know not, but assuredly to attempt a landing either at Naples or on the coast of Tuscany, for perhaps on the shore of France. Your Majesty is well aware that the sovereign of the Isle of Elba has maintained his relations with Italy and France?" "I am, sir," said the king, much agitated, "and recently we have had information that the Bonapartist clubs have had meetings in the Rue Saint-Jacques. But proceed, I beg of you. How did you obtain these details?" "Sire, they are the result of an examination which I have made of a man of Marseille, whom I have watched for some time, and arrested on the day of my departure. This person, a sailor, of turbulent character, and whom I suspected of Bonapartism, has been secretly to the Isle of Elba. There he saw the Grand Marshal, who charged him with the verbal mission to a Bonapartist in Paris, whose name I could not extract from him, but this mission was to prepare men's minds for a return. It is the man who says this, sire, a return which will soon occur. And where is this man? In prison, sire. And the matter seems serious to you? So serious, sire, that when the circumstance surprised me in the midst of a family festival on the very day of my betrothal, I left my bride and friends, postponing everything, that I might have hastened to lay at your Majesty's feet the fears that impressed me, and the assurance of my devotion. True, said Louis XVIII. Was there not a marriage engagement between you and Mademoiselle de Saint-Méran, daughter of one of your Majesty's most faithful servants? Yes, but let us talk of this plot, Monsieur de Villefort. Sire, I fear it is more than a plot. I fear it is a conspiracy. A conspiracy in these times, said Louis XVIII, smiling, is a thing very easy to meditate, but more difficult to conduct to an end. Inasmuch as, re-established so recently on the throne of our ancestors, we have our eyes open at once upon the past, the present, and the future. For the last 10 months my ministers have redoubled their vigilance, in order to watch the shores of the Mediterranean. If Bonaparte landed at Naples, the whole coalition would be on foot before he could even reach Piombino. If he land in Tuscany, he will be in an unfriendly territory. If he land in France, it must be with a handful of men, and the result of that is easily foretold, excreted as he is by the population. Take courage, sir, but at the same time rely on your royal gratitude. Ah, here is Monsieur Dondre, cried the Blackass. At this instant the Minister of Police appeared at the door, pale, trembling, and as if ready to faint. Villefort was about to retire, but Monsieur the Blackass, taking his hand, restrained him.